Hey, I'm Jim from Kashoo, and I will be the first to admit that accounting software is a little on the, shall we say, boring to static side of things, but at Kashoo, we're really changing that. Our accounting app is designed for small business owners, companies with 1 to 10 employees, where the owner really wants to take control of doing their own bookkeeping and manage everything on their own. Now, at Kashoo, we really built the application from a mobile-first perspective. We know that small business owners are on the go. They want to be able to invoice, take care of their record keeping like expenses, do bank reconciliation, all that sort of fun stuff from their smartphone or their tablet. So we launched a suite of mobile apps that make that really easy to do. And the way that you can think about Kashoo is we integrate with all of these services like online banking through Yodlee, payroll through companies like Paychecks, payments through companies like Square and WePay, plus all these other things like expenses, some point-of-sale systems, and mileage. So it really takes the work of doing the bookkeeping away from that small business owner, allows the data to automatically flow in to Kashoo, and they can go through it and then very simply review it, categorize it, and all of that hard work of bookkeeping is done for them in the background. And at Kashoo, it's really smart. In fact, we like to talk about it as really being the smart inbox for accounting. So you connect all of your online data sources. Kashoo is then smart enough to match up your bank statements or your receipts or your invoices with the data that flows in from third-party applications. So all of that's really interesting from a small business owner's perspective. Of course, it's easy to use. They can kind of eliminate their bookkeeper and just deal directly with their CPA. So all of that day-to-day record keeping and staying on top and in control of your finances is taken care of. But the challenge, of course, is how do you actually reach small business owners? And that's what we want to talk to this group today about, is that we learned early on that partnerships was a great way to extend the reach of Kashoo. Because in the accounting world, in fact, the small business world, there's really like pretty much 1 or 2 solutions that are out there. The whole ecosystem of small business finances is largely controlled by Intuit, and of course their QuickBooks product. And Kashoo is very much a competitor to QuickBooks for that small business owner. What we discovered along the way that there was a lot of other companies out there that offered things like, again, payroll or tax preparation, invoicing or payments that, well, they certainly wanted to integrate with Intuit and QuickBooks, but they may have wanted to offer some of their other core services around that. So we came up with a white labeling program that allowed people really to take Kashoo and then private label it or white label it for their own use. So they could take their core services, again, whether it be payments, payroll, tax preparation, banking, you name it, and bundle all of their services around Kashoo and come to market with a product that was designed for their small business customer with all of their services built into that. We started off this 2 years ago with a company called Paychecks, which is a large payroll service provider. And as you can see here, what we've done is partner with Paychecks to provide Kashoo to their over 600,000 small business clients. And it's integrated with Paychecks' in the case of Paychecks, payroll services, where they flow automatically into Kashoo, and then we use their payment providers and other services that they have. And this has been a really successful program for Paychecks, and for Kashoo, which we're a small developer, it's a great way for us to reach that very fragmented and difficult to address small business market. Another one of the white labels I want to talk about is just Liberty Tax. And Liberty Tax is, of course, one of the nation's largest tax preparation firms. They're right behind H&R Block, and they do a lot of small business tax returns. So for them, what we did was did a private label version of Kashoo that would integrate in with their back-end tax preparation software. So throughout the year, the small business owner could collect all of their expenses, their mileage, all of their sales. And then once that was all aggregated together, first off, it could be reviewed on a regular basis by their Liberty tax consultant, but at the end of the year, the data would flow directly from Kashoo into their tax engine. So all of this has been really successful for us in terms of a go-to-market strategy, but technically it's been a bit of a challenge to prepare all of that. And I'm going to turn it over now to Chuck Clark, our CTO, who is really the brains behind how we manage to basically white label this accounting app and integrate the data from all the various sources. Chuck?
Thanks, Jim. So what we thought we'd really do today is take what we've been doing over the past couple of years with both Paychex and Liberty and a couple of other partners and do a bit of a case study. And I think there's really two audiences that we're looking to help out today. There may be people who are looking to license a white label product in the future, and hopefully we'll give you some questions that you can ask people that might be service providers that you're taking a look at. But then the other is, from a technical perspective, maybe you're one of those small businesses that's looking to grow. Maybe your CEO has come and said, hey, I've got this great deal. You just have to white label the product, and it just needs to be ready in a couple of months. Never been in that situation before. And some of the things that you're going to have to consider when that comes about. I think the biggest thing is that it's really figuring out how to strike a balance. There's a natural tension because your partners, they want something that's been customized. They want to configure it to be their own. They want it to be like they built it in-house, but they've chosen to partner with you. And as a service provider, really, you have different needs. You need to have efficiency, that you cannot have developers that are not being very effective in what they're doing because they have to copy and paste and redo things for each white label. From an infrastructure perspective, you can't just be spinning up tons of servers to support these new white labels. There needs to be a way that balances between the needs of the provider, you, and the partners that you're looking to white label. So this is a snapshot of our iPhone app. The app works on the iPad, it works on the iPhone. But what was interesting is just kind of as a fluke early on, we had thought that one of the things that we would maybe want to do with the Kashoo app is have theming or skinning available to it, and that people could really change the look and feel of their app. And so we had built a lot in the application early on to facilitate what later became the ability to brand. And it worked out really, really well. You can see a couple of the apps here. One of the things that was interesting is all of our partners, they choose to offer a full-fledged companion app. So you sign up on the website and you get the full app. And so there really isn't a lot that's turned on and off, whereas Kashoo over the years, we've had a freemium offering, we've had different tiers. And so we do have some configurability that comes from within the Kashoo app for the different levels of functionality that we offer. But a lot of our partners aren't utilizing that, at least in the iOS apps yet. On the web, it was a slightly different story. There was a presentation earlier, they said they're not going to call it a legacy app, it was a classic app. We had a truly classic web application, a GWT application that had been launched in 2009. And really, this is where we were going to spend a lot of time figuring out how do we go with this web application we've got and make it so that it works for all of our partners. You can see that the structure is largely the same, but we were able to go and bring in all the branding assets that were important to them, change the colors. But that's really just the start. Colors are what people look at initially, but there's lots of things that are a lot more subtle and go into white labeling, and that's what I wanted to really talk a little bit today was our approach of how we undertook this and some of the things that I don't think we necessarily expected to be asked to do or that we have been really happy we've been able to make our application do in the couple of years that we've been evolving this program. The first was just the technical approach of how are we going to take an application that's running successfully for a business like Kashoo and make it run for all these white label partners. Dedicated instances and individual code bases, that's never the term that we actually used internally. It was either clone and go or fork and run that basically take the code and just assume it's a whole fresh code base for each of these new white label partners. A terrible way to go. If we have to fix bugs or implement a new feature, we'd have to re-implement it in every single code base. So not really a long-term viable solution. If we were only going to do one, that might be feasible, but we were looking to build a business out of this. So then the next was maybe what we ought to do is have dedicated instances for each of the white labels, but we'd have one shared code base. This is something that works really well. There's lots of people that offer white label solutions out there, and one of the big reasons that people choose this model is because you need to have different release cycles, that you may have a partner who can't take a release every time that you want it, and so you need to have lots of different instances of the software running. This was something we considered, but really we run in a SaaS business model. We have always been striving to go towards continuous delivery. It just took us a different direction and not where we wanted to go. So we focused on multi-tenanted, and it was really, the app had been built for that we could have any app server node serve any of the brands. And this takes a lot more effort because it's in your code. You need to actually start to have the notion of a white label or a site that you will look at and deduce and bring in the configuration. And it ends up working out really, really well. But we actually iterated one more and kind of went with a hybrid of the two that you can see here that we actually do have white label dedicated infrastructure. And it came because when we release, Kashoo releases very, very frequently, and we're a small team, and we wanted to basically sacrifice Kashoo first. It would be the canary in the coal mine. The way that some people do blue-green deployments, we decided that we would actually do that with Kashoo first, get the deployment out there, see that it all works, and then roll through to the white label cluster. And as we've been going along now and starting to, it seems everybody's talking about microservices these days, we're actually now starting to bring out microservices that really are small, that truly serve both the partner cluster and the Kashoo cluster. But from kind of a technical approach, that's one of the first things that you'll need to do. This is just a spew of JSON up here that really, a lot of this is all about configuration. There's things that it's logic that you've been building into your application year on year, and you need to get that externalized so that it can be tweaked. Where do you go to look for those assets? Labels was something that was interesting. We actually started to leverage what you have in the internationalization and localization frameworks because Kashoo, we're based in Canada, but we serve the world, and so on the sign-up form, we'd ask for a state or province. Some US companies absolutely only want it to say state. And so we had to use some of that same type of functionality you might use if you were localizing to a different language to essentially localize to one of our partners and the business logic that they've got. Feature flagging we'd been using for across the board so that we could actually send code out and that was dark that we were working on. We ended up enhancing that so that basically we can turn features on and off. Pluggable implementations for everything that if possible, you never know. Like we had a standard password algorithm, but one of our partners wanted something different. So these were all things that we really had to do. APIs, we need to build a developer portal because our partners, they want to integrate with us and have their data in the system. So there was a lot that we had to do to support them there. And really it came down also to automation because you can't be repeating the work for each of these new white labels that you sign up. And there was a great presentation earlier of the auto API of people that are now actually submitting apps that are white labeled in a one click to the App Store, which is fantastic. We've had to build that all ourselves. If you can have someone else do that, don't take them up on it. Every business, every partner, they think they're the snowflake. They've got special requirements, and the reality is they do. You're going into a running business. People want to own the registration and onboarding. They may want to ask specific information. We had honed our onboarding process for our customers and what we knew. Our partners had different needs, and they also have different marketing and automation systems that are running that they need to power, drip campaigns and everything else. You're not going to change that. So you just have to figure out how are you going to make sure that you can get the data out of your system into the systems that your partners have to run what they've got. In application content, we were Kashoo. We really wanted to have everybody use our application, so we had a payroll page that had all kinds of payroll providers. Well, that's not what Paychex is going to want, being the second largest payroll provider in North America. They wanted payroll solutions that were only from Paychex. So we had to go in and actually change things based on who our partner was, or maybe they already had exclusive deals, things that we hadn't really considered as we started going down this. Business models, one of our partners, they wanted to give it away complimentary to members and subscribers that they've got, whereas we'd always been freemium and had trials. So we had to figure out how that worked with billing. Do we bill them at the end of the month? And then just IT policies. big partners, maybe they're not so keen on social login with Google or Facebook. Maybe they have a specific password policy that you have to be able to have be pluggable for each of them. So there's lots of things that really start to bubble into this that we had no clue when we first started on this journey, that now we've actually evolved the system to actually embrace all of the different types of possibilities there are, but it's all done through configuration and as little as possible through code. One of the final things here then is just, it's easy to forget about the non-technical things. As a development team, we were really, really focused on the platform itself. What were we going to do for making sure that we were able to handle the load that would come in from the different sites? How would we actually distribute that load evenly across all of our app servers? And we really were thinking about only the technical aspects, and then we launched it, and there were a lot of things that I think caught us off guard, and that we've had to refine, such as video in help. Support sites are great when they've got video. Everybody's doing that today. The engagement is shown to go through the roof, but it's something now that when we produce a help video and on our support site or inside of the app, it actually has to be branded and produced for every single partner that we've got. There really isn't any way around that when you're doing voiceover. You need someone who's actually speaking to it. Huge effort that we didn't initially think of. The QA process, this has really actually driven us to adopt services like Screener and others that will help us automate the QA process. Every software shop should be doing this automation as much as possible anyways, but then when you have, suddenly you've gone from the one application or site that you've been running for years and you need to do it for multiple, you can't afford to have a whole nother QA team come in to test the others sites that you're releasing. And then finally, just the release and the roadmap communications. It's something that we're a small company. Through Slack or HipChat, we were always able to tell everybody, keep them up to date on what's going on, make sure that they knew that there was a release. Here's a new set of release notes. When you've got partners, they may move at a different pace. All of our partners do agree to go with our release schedule, but we have to give them enough pre-notice that, hey, there's something that's changing, so that if they're running a support team, they can get their support people up to speed and aware of new features that are coming out. And even longer term, on the roadmap, they want to know what the products and the features that are coming into the product a little bit later on. So really, we have to meet with them. And there's more than anything, there's been a lot of technical challenges, but I think the thing that's made all of these really successful is the relationship with the partners, and that there's a lot that goes into that, to balancing that tension, striking a balance, and making sure that we do what's right for Kashoo and what's right for our partners. So with that, there was the possibility of questions. So I guess if there are questions that come in, we can answer those. But hopefully, if you're someone who's looking at licensing a white label solution, we've given you some questions to ask as you talk to partners. And if you're someone who's thinking about bringing it into your product, there's lots of questions to ask yourself about, are you ready to undertake this? And Jim and I are here upstairs in the forum if there's anyone who wants to talk about some of those questions and answers in a little bit more detail. Thanks.
All right, so they have a few minutes left, and they definitely got some questions, so I want to make sure to hit them. The first one is, do you have any good approaches, the combination tutorial complexity of having a number of different options or feature switches, particularly for testing QA?
Yeah, that's a real challenge. That's where automation comes into this, and we've started to actually experiment with generating test data and having things go on the fly. We're not as sophisticated as we are, or as we would like to be, and that's really, the first bit has been just to automate all of the basic cases in terms of registration and new user accounts. Those were things that early on we had to do every QA cycle. We've looked into lots of QA software that actually automates as much as possible, but all of the combinations is a bit problematic, and I think it's something that we're working on internally to find an answer that I'd say is a great one that I want to share with everybody.